Welcome to Inside the Creative Mind, where passion meets purpose and creativity takes center stage. Each episode features powerful conversations with musicians, artists, writers, and creators, sharing their stories, struggles, and breakthroughs behind their craft. Now, let's welcome your host, Brian Jones.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Inside the Creative Mind with Brian Jones. That's me. Since around 1997, that's the date that I Googled. I got that number. I'm not that smart. I actually Googled it. But female artists have kind of helped define the gothic and symphonic metal genres. They're blending soaring operatic vocals and crushing guitar riffs and dark theatrical storytelling. Trailblazers like Sharon Den Adele Within Temptation helped kind of pioneer that movement. And today's guest, Gabriëlle Driessen, is carrying that torch into the next generation. So please join us as we dive into her musical journey, her creative process, and the passion behind the music. Gabriëlle, thanks so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm also super excited.
I tell you what, I'm excited about the conversation. Little icebreaker before we get into the nitty-gritty of all your work. Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're from or some of your hobbies, because, we have this persona on our social medias of how we portray ourselves, but I think our listeners really like to know who you really are. So if you don't mind sharing some things that you're comfortable sharing with the audience.
Of course. Well, I'm coming from an interesting background because I was born in Venezuela, but all my heritage is from Italy. So when I was around 18 years old, I moved to Spain. So I have almost 10 years here right now.
Wow, you've kind of been all over the place.
Yes.
Do you think, just while we're on that subject, do you think living in those different cultures and those different environments has maybe impacted your songwriting or your creativity?
A lot,
Yeah.
because the culture in Venezuela is completely different and how the things exist here in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
also, yes, it's crazy because in Venezuela, everything is more like close-minded. And here in Spain, everything is completely different.
Gloves are off in Spain, right? It's totally different. You can they seem like a very free-spirited country. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, I wanna get into your work because you've got a really cool body of work for someone being so young. And when I say that, I'm almost 60 years old, so you're young to me.
Thank you so much.
You're young to me, Gabby, but most people are. But there's a couple new releases, and one's a little newer than the other. So we've got Eternal Reverie and Deathly Waltz, and I listened to both of them again this morning before the podcast, and they're excellent, they're brilliant, they're well done. But my first question, if you don't mind, is your music kind of lives in a gothic metal world. It's filled with a lot of themes of love and death and longing, I guess, beyond the veil, if you will. What first drew you to that darker, more atmospheric style? Can you share that?
Sure, yes. Well, my fears, how I say it, the first band that made me closer to the genre was Evanescence. And I think it was like this for a lot of the singers in the genre. And after Evanescence, it came Epica. And with Epica, everything was like, came to place with this Beauty and the Beast topic and everything. I fell in love with the genre and I was like, okay, I need to make something with this. And immediately after starting listening to Epica, I started with classical singing lessons.
Oh, wow. So it really was more of a specific artist that kind of drew you into it. Have you always, or did you always feel before that, did you always feel connected maybe to some of those darker themes creatively?
Yes, I always feel drawn to these topics like love, death, despair, longing since a very young age because I started to listen to Evanescence and Epica around when I was 11 years old. So
Wow.
Yes.
You don't see a lot of 11-year-olds listening to that type of music, so that is pretty interesting. How did you stumble across it? Was it something that maybe a friend or a family member was listening to and they kind of, pushed it on
Yes.
you, or did you just pick it up?
Yes, with Evanescence, it was a cousin.
Mm.
He's a metalhead as well. So he was like, you need to listen some good music.
That's
And
kinda that's
after,
kinda great.
yes,
I mean, I think we're kind of a victim of our surroundings sometimes. We all fall into something that we've never been exposed to, and it just hits a chord, right? It
yes,
kind of just hits a chord with you, so it sounds like that's what happened. I got a piece of paper here, and I'm gonna read some lyrics from one of your songs, and I believe this is Eternal Reverie, so I'm just gonna share a paragraph of some of your lyrics because I wanna talk about this. So, "Lost
of
in the
course.
dead of night, empty ballroom in the dark, shadows of our memories waltzing together, driving me insane, piercing my soul together into the night, wandering inside our eternal reverie." Now, the reason I bring these very cool lyrics up, Gabby,
Thank
is,
you.
is because everybody, when we write a song, and I'm a songwriter like you, but when we write a song, we have a thought of what we're trying to portray. But then everybody else on the planet kind of interprets our lyrics in their own way. And so when I heard this song I always like to go in and find the lyrics so I make sure I know exactly what the artist is saying. But what came to mind for me, and this might be a little before your time, but there was a movie back in 1994 called Interview with a Vampire. It starred Brad Pitt, and I think Tom Cruise was in it, if I remember. But there's a scene in that movie where they're in this gothic setting, this kind of ballroom setting, and they're both vampires, right? And they're dancing in this, gosh, like 1700s clothing, and that song, Eternal Reverie, made me think of that movie because it had a lot of dark elements and things in the movie, and I just thought, I don't know why I'm connecting the dots there, but have you had people tell you that your music reminds them of something in particular or takes them to a certain place?
Yes, some people told me the same about
Really?
Vampire Diaries. Yes.
Oh, I thought I had this unique thing, but
Yes.
somebody that's cool.
And also, some people told me about the movie Labyrinth.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes, and also another one. I can't remember which one,
I think
but
Twilight
yes.
also kinda makes me think of Twilight, that series of vampire, slash werewolf movies. I could just like, if I remade that movie, I'd put your music in it. You know what I mean? It just sounds like a perfect fit, so
It's funny because I didn't write these songs thinking in a vampire setting or something like
mhm.
that, because these songs are like the soundtrack of the books I'm writing. So these books go around mythology, past lives, longing, and everything. So yes, it's kind of similar
Yeah, no,
because
that's
we
cool.
have eternity there.
Yeah. Well, that kinda opens up to my next question. So, the storytelling in your music feels very cinematic, as you just kinda stated. It's almost otherworldly. So when you create, do you start with a story in mind or an emotion or a visual concept? Can you kind of explain that to me?
Yes, when I want to write a song, I try to evoke some imagery and also some feelings, emotions, and also scenarios, because
Mm,
these songs in particular belongs to some specific parts of the second book of the
ah,
trilogy I'm writing.
I
Yes,
gotcha. No, that's
they
interesting.
describe scenes.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off because it sounds like your songs feel like chapters in a larger universe. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, how important is like narrative versus mood in your work? And what I mean by that is like, I guess my definition of narrative is the what of the story, like the plot, the characters and events. But then the mood may be how, where of the story and the emotional atmosphere. So, do you think it's more narrative or more mood that kind of strikes you when you're writing?
I think it's a mix between both because I'm always searching for a certain mood in the songs. And also, I feel like the narrative is one of the most important parts in the songwriting, at least in my songwriting, because I try to tell some stories. So I need to be like very specific so the people can understand the message and what I'm trying to say.
Well, your voice is, and to me, and this is just my personal opinion, it's very operatic. It's to me, it's like you could probably be in a couple different genres other than what you're into because you have that vocal range and that ability. It's sheer talent what you have vocally. So I really like how you've kind of collaborated with other musicians and different things to bring these creations to life. Can you just share for a few minutes maybe how your whole process, like how do you connect with these other musicians or writers or, at the end of the day, how have you put the Lego blocks together, if you will, of your finished product? I'd love to hear that.
Well, it was a very difficult process because, of course, I'm an unknown name in the field. So I was like actively searching for people to work together. I also started to work with another producer with the first three songs, that the Waltz, Eternal Reverie, and the next one that will come next. It wasn't meant to be. The things didn't work well. Since I'm a very good friend of Puli, that she is the girlfriend of Jamil, the the new producer, let's say, and also the co-writer of the songs right now. He's also the producer and writer of the songs in Abstracted Mind with her. And they literally saved me with this situation because the things were very dire. It was very difficult with this other person. Let's say that. Like, it was 1 year ago when I started to work with Jamil, and it was super fast. We started to get along immediately, and the things went very very smoothly.
So it
But of
just kind
course,
of
I
it
needed
felt
to
right.
leave the ego aside
Yeah, yeah.
and allow another opinion to work, because of course I was doing almost everything alone. When I had to allow another person to start working on it, it was like,
Yes.
but he did a fantastic job, so no complaints.
That's funny. It is, because when we have a vision as a songwriter and we're producing our own music, we have total control, right? We're like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how it's going to turn out. But when you start working with others, I was very surprised early on, and I was hesitant to work with others because I didn't want to lose control. But what I found was their contributions often made it better, or they opened up chapters to my creation that I didn't think existed, and I liked them better. Did you feel that way?
Yes. In fact, we have a situation with Deadly Wolves because originally the song will not have this black metal vibe.
Mm,
Jamil was like playing around when he was working on the production, and he took one of the chorus. He made these blast beats and sent me like, "Well, Deadly Walls is not like this," and it was a joke. But when I listened to it, I was like, "No, this needs to stay."
yeah, I think it's a fine line, right? You wanna embrace their opinions and ideas, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately your project, and you
Yeah,
gotta put your stamp on it, your name, because, if people don't like that first project, they might not tune into the second project, so it's scary, right? It's like you gotta trust the process and see how it turns
yeah.
out. So another question I have is that, like, Gothic and metal genres often explore, like, these deep emotional extremes, way more than, country music, for example. I'm not picking on my country artists, but, it's a whole different ballgame. But what draws you in particular to themes of, like, love and death? Because they're so serious. And I think, do you think those themes of opposites are opposites, or are they intertwined, like love and death? How do you see that?
I see like they're completely intertwined, honestly,
Mm,
because I feel like death comes around with grief. The grief is like love that doesn't have any place to go anymore when
Yeah.
you lose your loved one. So I try to express that in the songs because I feel like they're completely together, honestly.
Mm. How do you keep something like that, like love and death? How do you keep those ideas feeling fresh and personal? And how do you put your own spin on that? Because everybody knows about love and death, but what can you add from Gabby that makes that feel fresh and personal each time?
Unfortunately, I had a lot of losses around my life.
Oh.
I'm very young, but I lost my grandmothers and also my granddads,
Mhm.
and also a lot of pets. And I'm a very sensitive person because a lot of things. So I experience I live it in a way that's very, how I say it, explosive maybe.
Yeah. No, I can
Yes.
hear that in your music. I can almost hear some of the pain,
Yes.
a little bit of anger, for why did this
For the
happen to
love.
me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Your your new single, Eternal Reverie, it's not your newest, but it's new, has such a haunting, immersive feel. That was the first song I ever listened to. I don't know, I don't remember if you sent it to me or how I got it, but I really liked it. What was the emotional core behind that specific track?
The emotional core comes around this dream, this kind of dream when you fall asleep and you start to dream that you have this loved one again with you, this person that already passed away, and you don't want to get rid of this feeling and also this dream because it's the last moment maybe you will have this experience with this person.
Yeah.
And of course, when you wake up and you find yourself that it was a dream, you get completely heartbroken.
Yeah, it's so disappointing when you have those dreams and they're so like, I lost my father a few years ago, and he was my
I'm
best
sorry.
friend. Oh, yeah, he was my mentor, he was my idol. He taught me so many things in life, and even though it's been 3 or 4 years now, that emptiness, and I think you can relate to this when you talk about your grandparents and things, it never really goes away. You just kind of take that piece of your heart or your soul, and you kinda lose it, and you just tape over it with something
Yeah.
else in your life, and you go on. So I can totally relate to what you're saying. Then recently, you came out with Deathly Waltz, and I have to say, I really love the intro to this song. It's just really, man, anybody that's not listened to this song is like a movie. It's just like a
Thank
whole
you.
movie from start to finish, and the introduction is almost like where the opening credits are coming up, and it draws you in. It has a very evocative title also, being Deathly Waltz. But what story or imagery were you exploring with that particular release? Because it's a lot different than Eternal Reverie. It's got its own substance that separates it to me.
I feel like both songs are like two steps, two different steps in the grief process. You know, like Deadly Walls is this state of denial when you just lost this loved one and you can't believe it and you want to have it back with all your might and you need it to have it back with you. And you try to go to all the means possible to have this person back. Eternal Reverie is like the acceptance, like you're starting to feel like you're overcoming the situation. Of course, the emptiness is always there, but you're almost going with this loved one finally.
Yeah. Wow, I'm telling
It,
you, I really like how you've kinda cleared this up for me between the 2 songs. I mean, I knew something was going on there, but to hear it come from the author, if you will, itself, is really neat how now it's starting to make more sense to me how the 2 songs intertwine. I really appreciate you sharing that. Your sound blends heaviness with elegance, and when I say elegance, you
thank
guys
you.
gotta hear her voice. It's very operatic. I keep saying that. So it's got the heaviness, the elegance, the atmosphere. How do you approach balancing? And you do a really good job of it, but how do you balance those elements in your music where it's not too heavy, it's not too elegant, and it doesn't sound like an opera song? To me, that would be very challenging.
Well, it's interesting because I try to work in the orchestral parts first. Well, my writing process with these two songs in particular was like making the music,
Mhm.
the orchestral music at least, and later the lyrics and everything. But I was already having like the imagery for the songs when I did the music. And later, after having this skeleton, this orchestral skeleton, I go to Jamil and it's like, okay, I have this. Can you polish this and make it
Mhm.
beautiful? Put the heavy parts there because I don't know how to write band parts, honestly.
Right.
So he's in charge of all the magic with the heaviness, let's
Mhm.
say. And also with Eternal Reverie, he had to rebuild the song from the scratch
Mm.
because the former demo had a lot of complaints.
Mhm.
But he like took all the most important ideas in this demo and started to write around it. So that's why we only have from this former demo the vocal melody almost intact for the chorus.
Wow. There's just so
Yes.
much that goes on. I don't think non-musical people that don't record and produce music, I don't think they realize how much time and effort and sweat and blood and tears we put into our songs. And it is so much work. And I know you're probably like me, like I'm an energy engineer by day. So I have a career and then I do my music when I have time. And then I'm sure you do other things to make income in your life, but it's like so hard to find the time to get everybody together. Even like this podcast, you have a schedule, I have a schedule, and we're
Yes.
like, how can we possibly get together? But you make it happen, right?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it's so rewarding. And I can see that just talking to you about these two songs that you've got out so far. They're really impactful for you. And to me, I can't wait to see, what's coming next. So I kind of want to talk about that because I've got to keep an eye on our time and we're getting short already. It flies by. It's crazy. But your music feels like it invites listeners into another world, and I love that. I had a
Thank you.
dystopian author on last, Biddy Balducci, who wrote these dystopian books, and I love that whole dystopian theme. But what kind of experience do you want people to have when they step into your sound?
The first thing is I hope the people enjoy this
Mm.
funny universe and all this craziness because this is honestly all madness. But of course, I would like to people feel like connected and drawn to these uncomfortable feelings because grief and longing and despair and death are topics very difficult to face. It's like you try to avoid it at any cost. So it's like no, you can avoid you can face it in a way that feels more comfortable. More beautiful, more pretty.
Yeah, that's a really cool wrap up on your theme because I couldn't agree more. Gothic metal often attracts deeply connected and passionate listeners like yourself. And you said, I'm an emotional, sensitive type person, and I think a lot of us are. But have you had any fan reactions or interpretations that stood out to you? Like if somebody said this about your music and you're like, wow, I didn't realize that.
Well, the people when I released Deadly Wolf, of course, it was the first single, were like, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing!" And I was like, "I can't believe it," because I was super insecure about this release.
Yeah.
I spent like 3 years or so, no, 2 years working on Deadly Wolves, and also the first year was with this other producer. It was super difficult because he was always having complaints about my voice, about my songwriting and everything. My self confidence was at the bottom. honestly. And of course, Jamil was always all the time, and also Juli, like, no, you need to release this because the song works perfectly. You did a great job, and it's the moment to show you to the world.
That's awesome. That's awesome, and I think it's perseverance, right? Because all of us musicians are terrified that people aren't going to like our product, and the reality of it is some people don't like your music, and some people love it, and then there's some in between. But I think as
Yes.
a whole, what I've always felt, Gabby, is that if one person likes it, and if it affects one person, it's a win, right?
Yes.
We would love millions to like it, but in the reality, there's so much music out there, and it's so hard to even be found or get on somebody's radar. So if somebody tunes in, and just so you know, I did listen to all your music, and I do really like it, and I think it's fantastic, and I can't wait to see where it goes, and I'm being very sincere about that. But looking ahead, where do you see your sound and your artistic vision evolving next? That's what I want to know.
Well, you can expect way more drama.
I love drama.
The next single will be at the rooftop
Oh, wow. Okay.
of drama, honestly.
I think that's great. Can you share, like, maybe, are these going to be like trilogies, or what are you thinking as far as releasing them, and are they going to be intertwined?
Well, the all the album is connected because it belongs to the trilogy, of course, and every song it's like remarkable a
Mm.
scene from the books. It can be from the first or the two or the second or the third. It's like a mashup of the books. But of course, I can say that Deadly Waltz and Eternal Reverie belongs together in the second book,
Oh.
like the final moments of the second book. Well, almost. And also, the next single will be placed in the second book. It will be like the ending of the second book.
I gotcha. That's
Yes.
awesome, and it's exciting. I'll be looking forward to it, and I'm sure all your friends, family, and fans are going to be looking forward to it too. So we're out of time. Our 30 minutes always goes by like that, these
Yes.
conversations, and I could talk to you all day. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, and I know it's always hard to make time, but we really, really appreciate it, and we love your music and this whole
Thank
genre
you
that you're
so
in.
much.
No, it's our pleasure. And this whole genre you're in is really exploding. I can see it, especially in Europe and those areas. So I want to thank you again for coming on. And if there's any final thoughts you want to share with your fans or friends, here's your moment. So if there's anything you want to say, let's have it.
Well, I'm just super grateful because both songs has been very loved so far. Of course, I hope that the next song will have like the same reception and you will love it as well because this song took me like 8 months to write it. Only the music.
Well, we got it. We're going to love it. I mean, I think I can see the evolution already from the second song, from the first song. So I'm sure you're learning as you go too and getting better and refining your craft. But Gabby, again, thanks for coming on. We're out of time. But ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't heard Gabby's music, go check her out on Spotify. She's got a really cool Instagram page out there. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of Inside the Creative Mind. And Gabby, thanks again. We'll be talking to you soon, and we can't wait to hear your new release.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for listening to Inside the Creative Mind with Brian Jones. Keep exploring, keep creating, and don't forget to tune in for the next 30 minutes of inspiration, streaming on all platforms. Your next spark of creativity is just a play button away.